Overwatch, in its ever-present nature, just passed its second go at the Lunar New Year event, this time parading a higher quality of cosmetics and an inversely lower quality Capture the Flag or CTF game mode. Though, to its credit, it's much better than last year's catastrophe, but as we know, anything's worth more than nothing. But really, this year's CTF was worth playing, at least once Lucio was hotfixed, even though it's profound that his wall ride prowess even made the cut for not a mobility action, but hey, why make exceptions even if it would make the game better? Okay, snide commentary aside, this year the mode was worth playing since it almost felt official due to its reworked rules and more importantly, it featured an original map. I say almost of course as this mode is still lacking the general quality of the standard game modes of Overwatch harbor, and this is because of what feels like an attempt to be more like them. That might sound strange, but basically, CTF is very different from the rest of Overwatch, and while attempting to fit it into the regular mold, a wrong-shaped hole, instead of an excellent, refreshing new mode being born, what feels like a half-ass attempt was instead produced. And while that sentiment is commonly applicable to many aspects of Overwatch, this instance still misses the mark even if scathing by it. CTF affords dynamics and scenarios no other mode in Overwatch does, and this year, buried beneath the colossal disparaging issues, are moments that evoke refreshing, unique, and exhilarating feelings that instead of leaving me with a distaste for the mode, I was left with a desire for excellence, fulfilled potential, a desire for more. So that said, what's to follow is a deliberation on the issues of this year's Lunar CTF, and what can be changed or added to eliminate or resolve the issues and to increase the general quality of the mode as a whole, and what I can hope is how it would be implemented as a main game mode within Overwatch, since now going on 2 years with no big additions aside from Heroes Without Guns, the game could really use a rejuvenating new mode. So then, let's get to it. The issues of the 2018 Lunar CTF stem from its attempt at reworking the tried and true CTF formula, all while adhering to conventional game dynamics found throughout the standard game modes in Overwatch, thus creating a great disparity and delivering a game mode that is undeservingly dubbed Capture the Flag. These issues exist in 3 main categories of design. First is flag capture conditions, or really the lack thereof. This is a subset of victory condition rules. Second is flag rules, or better put, what actions can occur to the flag when and by whom. And lastly, map structure. This isn't where walls are or aren't, but more so where specific segments of the map like the spawn room or neutral zone are located. I'll start with the capture conditions as this is the most notable breakaway from standard CTF rules, as far as I know anyway. In Capture the Flag, the goal is to obtain and escort the enemy flag back to the secured friendly flag to score a point, aka capture the flag. However, in this CTF, there is an absently told stipulation that the enemy flag can be captured regardless of friendly flag status, a rule that greatly diminishes the value of defense in favor of offense, and ideally CTF is an amalgamation of the two. Though, in this case, offense might be generous, as eliminating enemies is only supplementary to the objective of this game mode, especially considering there's a flag rule in place that states, picking up the enemy flag is instant. This reigns speed and disruption king over decisively overpowering enemies, thus cultivating strategies that I can only call dishonest. Now, I am by no means calling Overwatch an honest game with how a number of heroes operate, gaining much more with less work than others, but even for Overwatch, this is overkill. And not at all to say it's impossible to defend a flag pickup. However, compared to other objectives to defend in the main modes, this window is much tighter and much more unforgiving. But I wouldn't say the tight window for defending the flag from being picked up in the first place is the issue. It's the comparably absurd ease of capturing the flag once it's picked up due to the push and pull design of the map. What this means is that since the spawn rooms are on exact opposite sides of the map and behind the respective flags, winning skirmishes and killing enemies pushes one team back farther and farther while the other controls the space between the two flags. So once the team with the field advantage gets the flag behind any sort of cover, or the carrier is being pocketed healing, or one zoning ult gets thrown, unless someone on the opposing team manages to stall the carrier, the chances of that flag being recovered is next to nothing. especially considering even if it's dropped, it can just be picked up instantly after a brief lockout, and especially considering that taking the enemy flag wouldn't even stall the capture process to give the pushback team time to possibly catch up. Hell, if anything, a teammate not being present to help defend or possibly assassinate the enemy flag carrier because they're trying to be cute and snatch the enemy flag is counterproductive due to how this version is designed, even though it's natural to want to act in such a way considering it's entrenched in many of us. Frankly, with how these three aspects are designed, the flags are just extra steps for the sake of aesthetics, as the same effect could be produced from a game mode where the objective is to capture the enemy team's base to score points. Well, it's not exactly the same, as that game mode actually sounds alright considering the spawn locations make sense then, giving an actual chance to defend the objective, one that doesn't move. And really, that's the crux of all this. Let me break this down. So, as they stand, the capture conditions and flag rules are honestly okay. They aren't my preference, and I think they don't exactly make for an interesting CTF mode, but I can see where Blizzard's coming from on this considering the simplicity of the main game modes, and, well, Overwatch in general, since games often tilt on which team uses the big glowy button in the middle of the screen better than the other. And in the case of instant flag pickups, a number of heroes have mobility actions, so if they can't use them with the flag, might as well make the pickup instant. However, while I can live with all that, the greatest issue is the disparity caused by the map being designed like any other, with a spawn room far away from the objective to attack and closer to the objective to defend. And while that might make a player feel at home, they're immediately in foreign territory when everyone's standing on a drop flag trying to speed up the rescue process, yet no expedition occurs, unlike with every other objective in the game. So an argument in favor of maintaining convention holds little water, and while it might seem like the spawn rooms make sense to be behind the thing to defend, in this case, it can move, meaning the distance from spawn to the defending objective is variable. Plus, as stated many times, the true objective is scoring points and preventing the enemy team from doing so, thus a jumbling of offense and defense, which leads me to believe, instead of spawning occurring here, it needs to occur somehow, somewhere, here. Now, I considered a couple of possibilities for how this could work, including deathmatch-like respawning around the map and underground or floating respawn rooms. But while they could work, and definitely better than how it works now, they lack the control, security, and buffer zones that respawning rooms and their exits harbor. So, with that in mind, a map featuring respawning areas without such poor qualities that are level with the rest of the map while also producing a more alluring type of battle would look something like this. And if that's tightened up a bit, it could look like this. Or to get a bit more creative, it could look like this. Of course, these are only three possibilities, and no single one is necessarily the correct choice, but the thing to note with these layouts is the staggered flag room alignments and branching spawn room exits. This produces a restarting point that allows for multiple angles of action in what should be a fluid and variable game mode. In these three mockups, the different components of the map, those being the flag rooms, neutral zone, buffer zones, and spawn rooms, were kept similarly proportionate to how much space they take up on Ayutthaya, give or take some capital here and there. The mockups did end up a bit bigger, as this is more to partition space than to define detail within. Basically what I'm saying is, it's not to say every bit of these sections would be used, they're simply the outer limits. Though, since the spawn rooms are the topic here, I did delineate a possibility for their shapes and exits. Now, one of the major effects of this design is a focus on the flag carrying in neutral battle rather than the flag snatching in base assault, as the distance to capture a flag after picking it up is longer than from spawning to snatching it. And since the spawns sit closest to the carry path, the flag carrier is not guaranteed safe passage. In fact, the safest route, which would be along the side of their own spawn territory, is the longest, while the shortest is through enemy spawn territory, aka the most dangerous. With this type of play as a focus, the flags become a much greater element in a game with flag in its title. I should note, with the respawn locations here, complete map control and full momentum is difficult to achieve. The map instead affords a design where here and here always provide some risk to the respective opposing team. Basically, instead of a push and pull design, it's more constant control around the spawns and variable elsewhere, which sounds very fitting for capture the flag. Additionally, Having the option select of defend base, neutral skirmish, or assault enemy base makes for a wide range of hero uses, ideally neutralizing hero efficiency for the game mode, a problem present in the other game modes of Overwatch. I do say ideally though, as some heroes are just inherently better flag carriers than others. And of course, the specific map design details may favor them. I think that's more than enough to get the point across without getting too deep into specific map details. But we're not done yet, as while this new map structure may fix the most egregious issue, it's still best to alter, redefine, or create new rules to accommodate this new structure, and just better the game mode as a whole. So then, first up is capture conditions. There are two options for this that I've discussed in passing. The first option is that the enemy flag can only be captured if the friendly flag is secured at base. And inversely, the second option, the enemy flag can be captured regardless of friendly flag status. However, more points are received for capturing the enemy flag with the friendly flag secured. In the instance of option 2 being picked, the amount of points to win must be increased from 3 to something like 5 or 7 to balance it properly. While something horrible inside me leans towards the second option, the first is remarkably tried and true, and is a bit simpler, which, as discussed, is more fitting for Overwatch. Alright, next up is the flag pickup and drop rules. Flags are locked, therefore unable to be interacted with for a period of time once the match begins, upon being captured, upon being returned, or upon being dropped. Unlocked enemy flags can be picked up instantly by one player. Thus, the player becomes a flag carrier and can be seen through walls by the enemy team. Flag carriers cannot use or be affected by any actions or states considered mobile, meaning many ultimate states, cooldown abilities, speed buffs, and passives. For this one, the flag carrier is floored and exposed, thus reliant on their team, and yes, Lucio is too good in this mode, so that's why I made that stipulation. Though, I will say I'm up for making exceptions here. I just think starting with everyone hindered rather than everyone capable is a better starting point, as nefarious as that sounds. Anyway, one final rule here. Once the flag is absent from its stand for a certain amount of time and thresholds of time thereafter, any enemy carrying it receives a debuff or multiple debuffs based on time thresholds reached. The debuffs would be like take more damage, silenced, and/or can't receive healing, maybe in that order. Specifics would need to be sussed out, but the idea remains that these act as a natural time limit. And I should note, these debuffs are not exclusive to the carrier who receives them. If the flag is gone long enough, anyone becoming a carrier is immediately wrought with whatever infections the flag happened to catch while away from its stand. Ugh. Anyway, moving on. We have the flag return rules. If a flag is brought into the spawn room, it is instantly returned to the enemy base. A dropped friendly flag can be returned to its stand by having an ally stand on it for a certain period of time. The rate of return during this moment can go one of two ways. Option 1. The more allies standing in range of the flag expedites the return process up to a certain speed. Say like, instead of one person taking 3 seconds, 3 people standing on it take 1 second to return it, but 4 people standing on it would still take 1 second. Option 2. The rate at which the flag is recaptured and rescued is based on its distance from its stand up to a certain speed. Say it drops right next to its stand, it takes 3 seconds to return. Say it drops right next to the enemy flag stand, it takes 1 second to return. Maybe a bit faster in that case, but that's the idea. Personally, I'm cool with either of these, though I probably lean a bit more towards option 2, though, as it's more in line with how it exists now, and I like the idea of one person returning it, while the rest of the team fends off enemies or moves to do whatever. And finally, victory conditions, and by extension, overtime triggers. The first team to capture a set number of flags or scores enough points wins. The team with the higher score at time expiring and flag secured in base wins. Nothing crazy, right? But allow me to expand on this a little bit. In overtime, if the team with less points scores, more time is added to the match. Let's say like a minute or so. This design is sort of a mix between recapturing a point at 99% on a King of the Hill map and getting a checkpoint or capture point on an assault, escort, or hybrid map. Ideally, this makes for a more forgiving match structure like in the standard modes. And last but not least is the sudden death conditions. If a stalemate exists at match time or overtime expiring, a sudden death scenario is enacted, resetting both teams to the hero select screen and by extension, their spawn rooms. The flags are then moved closer together, out of their respective flag rooms and into the neutral zone. And of course, the team to score first wins the match. While I haven't cared for sudden death with how it is now, with the rules proposed above and throughout, the idea of resetting to an intense neutral battle is very scintillating and would act as a unique feature for this game type. I'm sure there's some other options I failed to include as to how the specific rules of this game mode could work, and I'd be interested to hear them as there's a lot of potential for this game mode, but with all this said, you have what I can only hope is how a real-ass CTF mode could, more or less, be implemented as a main game type within Overwatch. As of right now, the future of Overwatch is unclear. The only thing I can say for sure, since it's a Blizzard game, is that it will inevitably live forever. Though there's little to show for that, aside from costumes locked behind annual events and heroes being added at a somewhat steady pace. But considering the slow progress and evolution of the game, and the infrequency of content, and, well, barring the annual Lunar New Year event needing a unique feature, I can only hope there's a larger team at Blizzard working on some big significant additions for the game, and that CTF, along with some new features, reworked modes, new heroes, maps, whatever, I hope CTF as a main mode is among them. Though, even if it's added, I'm not sure I could stomach it for prolonged periods, as Overwatch is the most horrifically balanced mess I've ever had the displeasure of being consumed by. But hey, maybe that big ol' update will actually show some competency in their ability to balance. Unlikely, but I'll have more on the balance of Overwatch at a later date. Soon. Hopefully. Maybe. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.